Hello everyone and welcome to my page. Today we're going to be building a simple JavaScript project to practice setInterval and clearInterval. The project is going to start by clicking on this button. A timer is going to count down, and once it hits 0, the interval that we have set is going to stop. So that's the project. Let's get started. So heading into my Visual Studio Code, you'll see I have a folder with 4 files inside. I'll have a link in the description to this video to my GitHub if you'd like to clone down this audio file, but feel free to use whatever you'd like. I have an index.html, an index.js, and a style CSS. I'll move through some of the general setup here pretty quickly so that we can get to the JavaScript and practice with the interval. Index.html exclamation mark for boilerplate. I'm going to change this to timer. I'm then going to link in that style sheet as well as the JavaScript file. One thing I'll need to do here is use the defer attribute. My HTML, all it's going to be is a div with the class of container, and inside an h1 with no content right now, and a button with the content of start timer. I'll now move into style.css. Some very basic styling here. We're going to apply a font family of sans serif. And then targeting the div with the class of container, I'm going to put display, flex, align item center, justify content center, height 70 VH, and flex direction of column. The goal here is just to push the application into the center of the page. We'll head back into index.html to get our project to appear in our browser. Right now we just have that button, and we'll continue to work on this now in the JavaScript. Now we're going to head over to our index.js file and start to declare some variables. The first variable is going to be a reference to the button, and the second variable is going to be a reference to the timer, so that number on our page. The next variable is going to be our counter variable. You can set this number to whatever you'd like. Here for our game, just to make it go quickly, I'm going to set it to 5. And then I'm going to get that h1, set its inner HTML equal to our counter. So when we save our file, you'll see now the screen will show up as 5. And the final variable we're going to initialize here is the variable interval, and just not even setting it as a value. This interval is what we're going to manipulate with our setInterval and our clearInterval JavaScript methods. So the first function that we're going to write is the function to create that little beeping noise when our timer hits 0. We're going to use an arrow function. Inside, we're going to say const audio equals new audio, then with a file path to our audio file. Again, you can use whatever you'd like here, but my file is called beep.mp3. And just again, for your reference, it's this file right here. Then we're going to go audio.volume. You can set this to whatever you want between 0.1 and 1. I'm just going to set this to 0.2 so it's not too loud. And then the final thing that we have to do in this function is go audio.play and then invoke it with the parentheses. The next thing we're going to do is write the logic for when the timer is actually counting down. We're going to create another function this time called timer. And we're going to have every time this timer function runs, the counter is going to decrement by 1 using counter minus minus. We're going to set the HTML inside of that h1 equal to the counter so that as the counter decrements, it also is showing up on the screen. We're also going to include an if condition inside this timer function for if counter equals 0, that means that the counter is done. We don't want it to continue to decrement into the minuses. First thing we're going to do is we're going to run our beep function to make that little screen go beep beep. And then we're going to clear the interval named interval. And again, we initialized that at the beginning of our code at the top, but this will make more sense in a second here. So our final step here is that we want to set up an event listener to run when we click our start timer button. So the syntax for that is as follows: click, second argument here will be an arrow function, and inside we're going to set the interval equal to setInterval timer 1000. So what this event listener is doing, we set the variable interval up here on line 5. When I click on this button, we're now setting the interval equal to a JavaScript built-in method of setInterval. The first argument is timer, which is this function here, and the second argument is 1000. So in other words, every time we click on the start timer button, our timer function is going to run every 1 second or 1000 milliseconds. This interval will continue to run until our program tells it to stop. So if it's running the timer function every 1 second, eventually our timer function is going to decrement the counter down to 0, which is found here on line 16. And inside of this control flow, we have a line here to clear the interval out. And that is why that when we run our program, the interval will run every 1 second until the timer hits 0, and then it will stop. So that's it for this video, everyone. I hope you got some good practice in with setInterval and clearInterval, and I'll see you in the next one.